Now that we've got the whole adding products thing down, let's go ahead and look at attributes. Product attributes are basically ways of making different kinds of products of the same type of product. And an example would be like, we have these Delta tactical ballistic glasses that we've been using for the past few videos, and these come with 3 sets of lenses, smoked, yellow, and clear. But let's pretend that it can only come with 1 set of lens, and that the customer has to specify which kind of lens they want before they can add it to their cart and get it checked out. Otherwise, you have to send them the default, which would be smoked or something, and then of course they send it back because they wanted yellow, results in a bad customer experience, and they are less likely to return to the store. So instead, we can actually make a little option here in the bottom that will force them to pick either smoked, yellow, or clear. And this is just going to be entirely for testing and proof of concept. We're not going to have this when we go live for this product because these are all interchangeable and it comes with all 3 kinds. So the first thing we're going to do when we try to create a product attribute is we're going to go to the store, products, attributes, and add an attribute. And this is the overlay for this. The name is going to be something memorable. We're going to go to Delta, if we can spell everything properly, tactical ballistic lenses, because these are the lenses that you can have. Alright, and then this is going to be the label that customers will see it as when they look on the product page. So we're going to have this lens color. Help text, this will be shown just under the label, and it's good for specifying things to the customer that the label doesn't quite make clear. So say pick a lens color for your deltas. Now this box is going to be important. We do want to make this a required attribute. That means that they are going to be forced to actually pick something from this list before they can add it to their cart. And this will just help prevent any sort of confusion, like I said earlier. Now the display type, because we're trying to force them to make this required, we want to also imply with our display type that it is required. So we have text field, select box, radio buttons, and check boxes. The text field is just like this help text here, where they can type it in, which isn't going to be very helpful because we have a set number of options. And checkboxes are like this, where you can check a box. And that's not very helpful because people are used to seeing this as, with a checkbox you can pick any number of them, objects that are there, and it's optional. So what we're going to look at is the select box and radio buttons. Select box is exactly like this is, where you have a box with an arrow and a drop-down menu. And then radio buttons are the little round buttons that you see where you have to pick one or the other, and selecting one deselect the others. We're going to go with radio buttons on this because radio buttons show all of the options available at once, whereas the select box with the drop-down is only going to show one option at a time unless you go ahead and use the drop-down menu. But we're going to show all of them at once using radio buttons to make it look more appealing. So we're going to go ahead and submit to create this in the database. And now we're going to add an option. First, we'll add the clear option. And list position you can basically have these sorted based on something other than the alphabetical sort. Now, normally this will sort alphabetically, so it'll be clear, smoky, yellow. But if you wanted to, you can put them in order of popularity, say that's smoky, clear, and then yellow. So you can change that. Right now we're going to default it to 0, so it'll just be alphabetical. That seems kind of clean that way. You can also change default adjustments. What we're doing here is we're creating like an overview clear type, and so you can change it, like if you have if it's actually more difficult to make clear lenses in general and it's going to increase the cost, then you can do that here on a whole basis, or we can do that on the product level basis. I would recommend the product level basis because it makes it less confusing. So for now, we're just going to leave all this 0 or blank. So we're going to submit clear, and then we're going to make smoky, and then we're going to make yellow. Alright, so now that we have all those, we're going to go up here back to options. And as you can see, options for the Delta Tactical Ballistic lenses are going to be clear, smoky, and yellow. So now we're going to go ahead and save these changes. And what it's done is it's created two different things. We have, of course, our Delta Tactical Ballistic glasses right here. But at the moment, it's completely unrelated to our lenses product attributes. So now we need to go into this menu and associate them. So we click Edit and get this overlay again, go to Attributes, and we can add an attribute. And we're going to do the one we just created, not the dummy one I did before, the Delta Tactical Ballistic lenses. Alright. And then here we can choose to remove it. If we have different kinds of them, we can rearrange it, but we only have one. Alright, and then it's going to have the name, the label, which will be shown to the user, how it's going to display. We can override basically all this on the product level before we were just creating the defaults. It's still required, and the default for now is going to be clear because that's the first one. We can also change that. So say, let's see, go to options. See, now we can change which one of these is going to be default. So we want smoky to be default. We can do that. And we can override the cost and the price and how they're going to be, sorted by the weight. Now, weight here does not mean that it's going to weigh, 1 ounce more to have clear lenses versus smoky lenses or anything like that. This is purely for sorting. If you keep them all at weight 0, then they're all going to be equally sorted and then just sorted by their first letter or alphabetically. If we wanted to change that, we can do that, and we can add weight 5, and then it will show up as smoky at the bottom because it weighs more, it sinks faster than 0. We're going to leave that 0 for now. You can also increase the cost for the item or the price for the item based on just this thing within the product, so at a product level. Say it was $79.98 for these Delta Tactical Ballistic glasses, but to have the clear lenses, because they use a different kind of technology for filtering the UV light, it costs $5 more for you. So you want to increase the price by, say, $7 because you're also having to do, extra technical handling for it or something like that, extra storage. So you can actually increase the price by $7. And say that's not true for smoky, but for the yellow lenses, there's a special thing with the dye, so you have to increase it by $2. And you can submit that. Now the adjustments, you can basically just change the SKU based on the kinds of lenses that you have. You can do this especially if you're keeping stock or track of, how many of what kinds of things are being sold. This is really good to use the alternate SKUs if you do have different kinds of products, because when you get those extra stock pages, you'll need that for like the threshold when it sends you the email, all that kind of stuff. Right now I'm not going to mess with it because this is just for demonstration and we're going to end up deleting this later. So we'll just submit everything, close it out. Alright, now you see lens color, and if we choose the clear one, it's going to add $7. If we choose smoky, it's not. If we choose yellow, it's going to take 2. Now if you notice, whenever you click on one of these radio buttons, the other ones will be deselected. That means something has to be chosen, and you actually have a default choice for the people that are just rushing through it, and then they won't have these errors thrown at them. Well, you have to pick a choice, do something about that, and then they get confused and frustrated, and prevents any of that. And as you can see, here was our label, and here was our help text. And you can change, like I said, any of that. Alright, but for now we're going to go ahead and go back to edit to remove this so that way we don't have to worry about them in the production environment. Go back to attributes, click to remove, and then just save changes and it'll be unassociated in the database. Now if you have some attributes like these that you don't really want anymore, this was my test before, this is the one we just did, and we don't want them, we can go ahead and just delete. You do have to be careful though, it'll make sure that no products are being associated with that attribute because it can mess up some products if you still have it associated and you want to change it over first. That pretty much wraps up product attributes. It is a little bit more of an advanced topic, but it is still really helpful, and it can reduce the redundancy of having multiple items with the same description, but you know, slightly different lens color or like a different size and that kind of thing. And that wraps up this video. Next we're going to look at reports.